That's it, yeah. I don't think any of us anticipated probably having a second annual meeting on Zoom, and hopefully this is the last one that we do have to do, and that next year we can be back into some sense of normal mode, at least having the meeting at the pub as we would like to do. So I'm just going to put up the presentation now, if I can crack it. There we are. Hopefully everybody can see that, and I'll just take us through it. Just a moment, bear with me. There we go. Just at the outset, I mean, it has been a difficult year, there's no doubt about that, for all variety of reasons, and people are impacted differently. But I just want to remember 4 of our shareholders who have passed away in the last year. None of them COVID related, but nevertheless, 4 of our shareholders have passed away, and I'd just like to remember them at this point, because in their own different ways, they all contributed to the foundation of us getting started, and indeed more tangibly with work as we got underway. On the slide there, top left, you've got Joyce Lambert, always ready with the marigolds. I remember Joyce when we first got started with cleaning the pub out, if anybody can remember that. We inherited something that was a little less than spick and span, to say the least, and Joyce was there, I say, with gloves on and the flash, and got us going with some of the cleaning up work. Bernard in the middle there. Bernard always just used to turn up and say, "Tell me what you want me to do," and he did it to the best of his abilities. Bless him. He was there as a willing hand. On the right hand side there, we've got Roger. Again, for those who can remember, Roger was a stalwart with the decorating, did quite a lot of it himself, but also managed the volunteers who helped with the decorating. We didn't see a lot of Roger because he kept some peculiar hours, but you could go in the next day and suddenly a wall or a ceiling had been painted, and I say, he just used to come and go and just literally get on with it. And then bottom left, we've got Tony Crease. There's a picture of him there at one of our open meetings, and also with the bagpipes. Again, for those who used to go to Burns Night, Tony was a regular playing the bagpipes and piping in the haggis. And I say, we'll remember them all in different ways, but from my point of view, with a sense of fondness and gratitude. Well, we'll just skirt through the first part of the formalities. I've done some introductions. There aren't any apologies. We are quorate, and hopefully anybody who's interested in the minutes of the last meeting has had time to read them, and we'll move on. So if we could just look at the year that we've gone through. Last year, can I get rid of that, John? That's it. Last year, we were able to report that we completed the lion's share of the renovation works, with the bed and breakfast rooms being complete, being a major project. And then we decided to do the windows, and finally finished with the re-roofing. And the re-roofing caught us in the first of the COVID lockdown scenarios. We'd literally ripped the roof off, and then lockdown was declared. So we had to cope with that, but nevertheless, we came through it. And importantly, last year, we achieved our overall income goal. And what I'll go on to report later on is, in fact, now we've actually overachieved that. But we did achieve our overall income goal, going back to the original business plan, and now a sort of preferred option, if you like. There we go. Oh, wrong way. There we go. So this year, I say we started the year with the major renovations completed, and during the year we've done some minor works to the pub, which I think will be the order of the day as we move forward. There's always something to do, but we did the fencing to the side of the pub, new log burner installed. When we get back into the pub, hopefully next week, you'll see that the fixed seating has been reupholstered. And also we got some support to put a TV up, not to become a sort of sports pub or a sports bar, but the idea was to support the groups and societies that might want to use the television for things like YouTube and the like, to support them with their learning or their activities. And I think, to be fair, Tom also sees it as a business opportunity as he goes forward. But I say, not to have a pub with a TV permanently on in the corner. What we were able to do as well is, because we had completed all of the major renovation works, we were able to take stock and also look at those things that were not necessarily outstanding, but were a question mark when we set out. The car park was one, which, as you probably know now, is already substantially complete with the housing development having started. We also had in our minds, say going back a couple of years, to do something grandly with what we called the shed area. But at the time we put the original business plan together, there wasn't sufficient funding to do that. But we were able to look at our spends to date, again, taking into account the grants that we'd received. And we did have some resources to be able to think about tackling that area, so that we put that into our capital programme. And it was coincidental that we were notified, I think it was in February, that the housing development was due to start. And that was a timely marker for us to be able to say, yes, we will do something with that area and get on with it. And then, as everybody knows, we've had COVID to cope with in our different ways. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. Now, just for those who want to see the figures, I'll run through them very quickly. But just to remind ourselves, a couple of years ago when we set out, we looked at a funding pot of just under 400,000 and thought it would be covered by substantially just under £300,000 worth of shares and £100,000 worth of grant and loan. But in fact, where we are now is a slightly different position. As I reported last year, we shut the share offer at £250 million rather than 295,000, because with other grants that we'd got coming in, we were able to, at that point, meet our funding target. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, we've exceeded our funding target substantially due to a grant from Hambleton District Council, which in the main went towards renovating the cottage, and other grants that we've applied for and received since. So it has enabled us to do more and make better progress. But albeit, say, we've overachieved on our funding target. We've had some grants during the year. We had a grant towards the TV system from an organisation called Pub is the Hub. And we've had another grant of just over £4,000 from a body called Power to Change, and that went towards the seating and the log burner. And just very recently, we've had a lottery grant towards the shed area. And again, I'll cover what that's been utilised for and where that might take us in the future in just a moment. So there's the actual facts of it. We've spent or committed to spend just shy of £220,000 now on renovations. When we set out, we had that budgeted about 195, which is what last year's figures reflected. And as I said, because of additional income, we have been able to achieve that little bit more and make progress with a couple of projects that were aspirational back in the original business plan, but have now been able to come on stream and in fact come to fruition. Let me see. That's it. No, it's going the wrong way. That's it. So at the moment, our overall capital programme, if you take one figure from the other, is take off our commitments and the purchase price against our income, and we have a small capital sum left of just shy of £14,000, which I think a couple of years on, when you think what we've achieved in terms of updating the asset and doing all the renovations, personally, I don't think is a bad result at all. I think that's a good position to be in, and slightly probably better than we anticipated when we set out. As ever, we rely and hope that we get volunteer help. It manifests itself in many ways. Top right there, you can see a slide of some of the work that's been undertaken to get the shed area into shape, which again I'll come back to. I know Tony's with us tonight, and I won't embarrass him by saying thank you in public, but I just did. Again, Tony and Mike, again, a couple of volunteers are always go-to people. And I think one of them is actually leaning on the fence work that we were doing there to have the photograph taken, but the rest of it, I can assure you, was hard work. There's a couple of slides there. You can see I even got Tom out working the wheelbarrow when we were doing some renovation work. The gardeners, if I can use the pun, are a perennial, and we're grateful for them. And just on the left-hand side there, something that I think we thought would come to fruition, and we hope would come to fruition, is that the community, the pub itself, would be a hub for other activities. And again, we had our first Christmas tree on the green last year, and I think, unfortunately, you do something once and it suddenly gets dubbed a tradition. So I hopefully we'll see that again this year and in future years. But it was good to see the community rally really to get that together. And I know George is with us tonight. And again, I won't embarrass him by saying thank you, but again, I just did because George organised that and pulled the volunteers together, and say hopefully it can happen again this year and in future years. So we were notified in February that the housing development was due to start, and coming with that is the car park, which we knew about when we got started. Part of the deal when we bought the pub was to enter into an agreement with the developer that basically we to all intents and purposes did a land swap, so that our car park was repositioned. But the upside of that, the real upside of that, is we get a brand spanking fit for purpose new car park. If you can just bear with me at the moment, the screen's just pinging at me. I don't know whether there's somebody trying to get in, John. How do we work that out?
You moved the thing, didn't you?
Participants. No? Yeah. No, I don't think there's anybody else wanting to join us, so we'll carry on. But there's just a few slides there of some of the groundwork that was being done to get the car park established and get the levels done. And then for those who have been near the pub recently, you'll see that the car park is substantially complete. The sheds used to be over on the right-hand side there, and then we've got our new car park. The only thing that's left to be done on the car park is the entranceway. That will stay as it is for probably the next few weeks. The reason it's not been finished completely to the road is that some of the services for the housing development have to go across the bottom of that driveway. So until they're installed, the car park can't be completed to the road. But again, it's all work in progress. It's all happening, and that will come together over the next few weeks. The shed area is referred to. Again, that's what we started out with. For those who are familiar with the pub and remember the sheds with fondness, but basically it was the area above the beer garden. Substantially wasteland, underutilized. The sheds were a dumping ground, but more importantly, were unsafe. So again, we took the decision to make progress with that part of the holding and get rid of the sheds and make something usable out of the area that they occupied. So we went through this as a transition. You can see there various bits of groundwork going on, new fencing being put in. The big hole that's to the right of the slides was where the new steps actually ended up, and you can see over on the right-hand side some of the construction that you don't now see to provide some steps from the lower beer garden to the upper beer garden. But with a lot of huffing and puffing, eventually we get to where we are now, which is that area opened up and available. We've got the new steps in there, as you can see. The area has been surfaced. It's been fenced around so that it's secure from the car park. And at the moment, it's still work in progress in setting it out and making it into a usable space. And again, it's a space not just for the pub, it's a space for the community as well. And we truly hope that individuals or clubs and what have you will want to use the area out of pub trading hours. And if there's thoughts and suggestions on how that could move forward, again, we'd like to hear those and see what we can do. Oh, that is just a slide out of interest. When the housing foundations were being dug for plot number 1, that came out with the digger. It's an old AA sign, and we've got some photographs. I think it'll go back to the 1930s, where that would have been on the front of the pub at some stage. And apparently, of the day, they were quite popular markers. If you can't quite read it, it tells you it's 1.5 miles to Burniston and 22.5 miles to London. But they were all over the place, apparently, in the day. But as we understand it, they got took down in the war as direction markers. So we assume it just got took down and thrown to one side. But it's obviously unique to Exelby. At the moment, I'm just seeing if we can get it straightened out a bit and put it back up on the front wall from where it came. As we've done the renovation work, we've had a passion for supporting local businesses. That's been no different over the past 12 months with works that have been done. There's a few more join the roll of honour. But again, I think it's a pat on the back to us that we've supported local businesses and been able to do so. Just one moment, John's just that's it. Helping with the technology. I think we're okay. Yeah. So we've been able to support local businesses, and I think if you put a compass in, there is none of those businesses that are further than 30 miles away. So I think we can say that we have been local with our spending, and supported local businesses. You couldn't do an annual meeting review without mentioning COVID. I say it's affected many people in many different ways, and it's not an occasion really to look at every twist and turn, because I think we can now truly look forward and see some resemblance of life returning to normal. Certainly, even next week with the pub opening fully, albeit with COVID rules applying to trading. But the pub has endured 3 lockdown periods, and I think it's fair to say that the hospitality sector overall has taken something of a hit during the last 12 months compared to a lot of businesses. And again, as directors, we've sat down and spent a good number of hours working out how we can support Tom and Becky and also see the business come through. And you can see there on the slide some of the things that we have done. We've been able to apply rent-free and reduced rent periods. We've hopefully kept everybody informed what's gone on. We've been able to do that by managing our finances particularly well, and managing the resources that we've got. Particularly, we did ask last year shareholder forbearance on payment of interest, which gave us a resource and a cash flow to be able to support the business. We've also had external support as well. But the good news is we've come through it. Not only have we come through it, when Jerry gets to do his bit, you'll see that we're in a good financial position overall, and our finances remain sound. So I think for an uncertain year that we've been through, that's certainly a good place to be at this stage in the game. But I say Jerry will come back to that when he just gives us a review of the finances in just a moment. Normally, the management committee would meet 3 monthly, but as you would expect, it's been pretty much monthly for the last year, whilst we've had COVID with us, and we've had to react to that and respond to that and keep our eye on things. But basically, the management committee have been fleet of foot and just basically met when necessary and responded accordingly. And I say you wouldn't, I think, expect anything different of us, but that's certainly been the modus operandi for the last year. So I'll just come on to the accounts. Now, hopefully, I can't see him, but Jerry's somewhere close to be able to take us through the slides. And if you help me, Jerry, when you want to move a slide on, I'll just move it on for you. So here's the first one, and hopefully Jerry will chip in. Are you there, Jerry? Lost you.
You need to unmute.
You're on mute, Dad.
Just a minute, unmute. Dan.
Yeah, I've unmuted me.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can
Right.
now. So if you want to take us through the financial stuff, Jerry, I'll move the slides on for you.
Will do, Peter. As you can see, the accountants seem to think we've got things right in terms of keeping records. Meeting the financial criteria for the purposes of Section 84 is important because it enables us to avoid audits, and we'll pick that up on item 7. Cadwallader and Co., who are our accountants, are becoming increasingly rigorous as we grow as a business, very forensic in their checking of the records, to the point of, you know, you had £15 petty cash 2 years ago, Mr. Price. Can you give me details of how much you have now? And the answer is we've still got £15 petty cash because we don't deal with cash at all. I was asked to give account for one of the grants we've had and had to furnish every invoice and receipt for that grant. So they are doing their job pretty thoroughly, and we've come out of that when they are satisfied with our record keeping. So moving on, Pete. Well, the messages there are easy to see. The important point here is we've done everything we're supposed to do. We've done it on time. So as far as the accountants are concerned, we have a clean bill of health as far as our finances are concerned. Headlines, well, I'm not going to take you through the detailed figures that our accounts contain, partly because I think the only person who can recognise and understand the figures is the accountant. It is a dark art, but the good news is that we are making a small operating profit to the point where we can now generate enough money to start thinking about the future. So we have established a share interest fund where some of the profit goes into a fund that will pay future years shareholder interest. We've established a repairs and improvement fund, which will enable us to shift some of the revenue we've got into future capital to help us with top up that 13 and a bit thousand that Peter referred to. And we've also established, although there's not much in it yet, a share repurchase fund. We've deliberately not put much into that because we do have a waiting list of people who would like to be shareholders. And you may be aware that our shares are withdrawable shares. The only people you can sell your shares to are the company or the society. And the society then allocates the shares to someone on the waiting list who puts the money in. It is conceivable that we might get more people wanting to cash in their shares than we have waiting to buy shares. That's certainly not the case at the moment, but we are putting a little aside should we ever need to buy back shares. And finally, we have a community fund, which is a very small fund, but it does enable us to put a little bit aside to help a group or a club based in the community with anything small that they might want to buy to enable them to operate more effectively. So that only stands at a few hundred, and we're only envisaging very small grants, but it's real progress that we are able to establish that fund and top it up to a small degree year on year. Next one, Pete. And this is the really good news. Last year, of course, we said we could afford the 1%, but we asked you to defer it because we didn't know what COVID would bring. Well, COVID brought all sorts of horrors, but through all that, we still ended up the previous year positively. Last year, the interest that we said we hoped to pay in our business plan was 2%. That is most definitely affordable. And we have made the decision to pay the 1% from the previous year. The 2% for 2020 means that shareholders will receive 3% on their investment when we send the checks out later this month. 3% is roughly 6 times the current rate that you can get on your money in a bank. If you've got just 1 share, you'll get enough money to buy yourself a main course in the pub. If you bought 10 shares, this will give you the opportunity to buy the entire management committee a round of drinks. And there are other ways you could spend your money, of course. Looking ahead, we will issue the checks in the next week or two, unless you haven't already given us your bank details and you would like to do so, because obviously it's going to be easier for us over time if we can pay shareholder interest into bank accounts. So if you haven't picked up that bit from the invitation to tonight's meeting and would like your share interest paid into your bank account, please can you let John have your details in the next couple of days, because we will start working on this certainly by the weekend. Looking ahead, our income is increasing, looking into the next year, this year and next year, roughly as we planned it would do. So that this financial year, 2021, we're expecting that by the end of the year, we will make an excess of income over expenditure of somewhere around the £12,000 mark. Now that ought to mean that we can pay the 3% we said we should, according to our business plan, and put a bit aside for those other funds I've referred to. So when Peter says that the future's looking good, financially, COVID permitting, of course, and who knows down the line whether we will or won't have more lockdowns and so on. But as things stand, given the very positive outlook at the moment, according to the Prime Minister, I think we can expect that we'll have a successful this year, and will be in a position to pay the interest as planned and put money aside for the future. So that's the summary really of the finances. And Peter, we need to move on to the resolution about auditors.
Yeah, there's just that one. That's the formal resolution that we're required to pass. As I can't see everybody at this point, I assume everybody is nodding and say yes, that's wonderful.
They are.
Excellent. Right. Let's move on a little bit then. Just looking ahead then, very, very briefly. As I say, we've shifted a lot of ground in a couple of years. It's all in line with what we expected to do, but it is a lot to have achieved. And as I say, that I don't say that lightly. We've completely renovated a pub, which is been no mean feat, and also now seeing the benefit of things like the new car park coming on stream and the adjacent housing development. So. Though I might say from a personal point of view, I hope it's a year of consolidation and one where we can just actually enjoy the pub rather than having to think about it all the time about what we're doing next and when we're going to do it. Because as I say, we've concluded a significant phase of renovation work, and with our car park completed, for those scholars of the business plan looking back, you can pretty much put a tick against everything that we set out to do. So I think looking forward, the real goal for us is to see Tom and Becky's business continue to grow, which produces our resources. And I think works that we may do in the future should be geared towards continuing that growth in the business, so that it supports the company overall. The only other thing that I've put on that slide, which again is a wish and a hope, is that once we're allowed to, we can certainly see more community events and community involvement return to the pub, using that as the hub. And again, if there's any individuals with ideas and thoughts about what that might be, or indeed want to lead a community event, that would be good to know and great news to hear. So I think next year will be one where we can just breathe easier a little bit. We'll hopefully see the back of COVID, and we've seen the major developments completed, which, I say, 2 years on is not a bad place to be in at all. As ever, do try to keep everybody up to date with our newsletters, and if anybody wants to see the latest news at any time, it's always there on our website. And then just to final couple of bits, our membership as such has remained pretty stable. There's the figures. Jerry's already referred to the fact that we have a waiting list for people wanting to come on board if there are shares available in the future. And again, that's a good position to be in. Finally, we've just got the management committee to think about. We've got now our full complement of 9 directors, with 3 directors being co-opted last December, and they all came on board as a result of discussions over the last 12 months. So we've got the 6 directors that serve till 2024, and then tonight the 3 new directors, Kathy, Linda, and Lucinda. We are agreeing to elect or co-opt them formally onto the board. And that slide is a bit of a mistake. It should say till 2025, not till 2020. Sorry, it says that at the bottom, which is correct. They were co-opted in 2020, but if they're formally co-opted tonight, then that will be for a term until 2025. And I think that concludes the bits that I wanted to go through. Now, if I can get out of this, hopefully, I can see you all again. There you are. Yes. So, if there's any questions or any comments, we'll take them at this point. Otherwise, we will move on. Stunned silence. Is everybody okay with all of that? Yeah. Everybody's giving us a thumbs up. Right. So I think the only thing to do is to say thank you for coming. I genuinely hope this is the last time we ever have to have a Zoom annual meeting, because personally I don't like them, because I can't interact with you and you can't heckle too much, which is not a bad thing, I guess. But the best place for this ought to be in the pub. And hopefully for our annual meeting next year, we will see you all in the pub. And on that note, I'll say cheers and good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, very good.
Cheers, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Bye. Leave.